How's it going guys, Kris here, and today we're going to be taking a good look at another Battlefield 5 weapon, the Gewehr 43. A German semi-automatic rifle for the assault class that can be used pretty much right from the start. Back in 1940, the Germans set up a program to design and make their very own semi-automatic rifle, which could be issued to their military during the war. Other armies they were up against, like the British, Russians and Americans, were one step ahead of them, already having access to semi-auto rifles, and they were proving to be very effective weapons on the battlefield, having more firepower than a typical bolt-action rifle. The Germans started out by designing their first version of the gun, the Gewehr 41. The problem with this first version, however, was the fact that it featured a pretty complex gas system, which not only made it too expensive to mass produce, but also made it prone to getting dirt and debris lodged within its mechanism, making it awkward to reload due to it having a fixed magazine. Further down the line, the Germans eventually fought the Russians on the Eastern Front, where they managed to acquire the SVT-40, a Russian rifle that used a semi-automatic function, just what the Germans were looking to build. They used these captured Russian rifles, which had a simpler design that used detachable box magazines, making them superior to the Gewehr 41. Using this newly acquired foreign technology, the Germans improved upon their design, eventually coming up with the Gewehr 43 in 1943, which performed a lot better, so was put into service in the same year, ironically used against the Russians that inspired its creation. The Gewehr 43 had a lot of similar aspects to its predecessor. It still fired the same 8mm Mauser cartridge and used the same bolt locking mechanism, but it was now compatible with 10-round detachable box magazines, with the rifle itself also being much sturdier and easy to manufacture. It wasn't exactly a very popular weapon in the German military, mainly being issued to specialist units, but it did see action on several fronts, often being fitted with a scope and used by snipers, who praised its effectiveness against long-range targets. Anyway, time for the stats. The Gewehr 43 is one of the more powerful weapons in the assault class, with it dishing out a pretty decent amount of damage per bullet. It deals the maximum damage of 45 up to 25 meters, which is then going to drop down quite quickly to 35 damage at 50 meters. From here, the damage is going to drop down at a more gradual rate, eventually reaching 33 damage at 100 meters, and it'll continue to drop even more, until it reaches the minimum damage of 28 at 150 meters. These are the same sort of damage readings as the Selbstlader 1916 and the Carabin 1938M, meaning it'll be a 3-shot kill right out to 100 meters, but it'll often take one more bullet to bring someone down beyond this point, equating to a 4-shot kill over long distances. Headshots are often going to reduce the number of bullets needed to kill, unless your opponent happens to be within 50 to 100 meters, where it'll still unfortunately require 3 shots to take them out regardless, unless they've already taken a bit of flak first from something else. So planting headshots is still going to be beneficial, but more so against players closer by, along with the ones far away. In comparison to other semi-auto rifles, this is a fairly strong amount of power, giving each shot quite a lot of worth. As a trade-off though, the Gewehr 43, just like some of the other high-powered semi-autos, happens to have one of the laziest fire rates in the class of just 300 RPM. It's not the slowest, but it's still not exactly very competitive, making missed shots even more punishing by lengthening kill time significantly. With that said, because of the gun's stronger damage per bullet, this still gives the Gewehr 43 some very respectable kill times overall, providing you can land your shots, with the weapon excelling over longer ranges while still performing reasonably well in those close quarters too, being able to take people down at a similar speed to the M1A1 carbine, despite that gun firing a lot faster. So just like pretty much all of the other semi-automatic rifles in Battlefield 5, the Gewehr 43's recoil pattern is very simple, because the only thing affecting the gun's kick is going to be that vertical figure, basically the one that causes it to jump upwards after every shot. The weapon's got a horizontal value of 0, so it can potentially be very accurate if you can line your shots up properly, as it's not going to jolt from side to side as you open fire, making it precise when firing follow-up shots. The problem is, that vertical recoil that is going to affect the gun's ease of use is actually quite high, having one of the higher values in the class of 1.55. Not the worst, but definitely not the best, so this is going to reduce the gun's stability and make it a bit harder to control. Having a higher upwards kick is often going to make it seem a bit tricky to use for firing follow-up shots, especially if you want to retain the gun's maximum fire rate by tapping the trigger and shooting as fast as you can, to try and kill the other guy as quickly as possible. It's probably not going to cause too many issues within shorter sight lines, but it'll definitely seem more noticeable against targets further away, wandering around in the distance. So although the Gewehr 43 can be a pretty deadly weapon at range, this higher than average kick value might sometimes get in the way a bit, slightly reducing kill times by forcing you to fire a tad slower to keep the weapon stable. Fortunately, this high recoil value can be reduced down to 1.24 with the recoil buffer spec, making life a little bit easier for you, putting it more in line with the Carabin M1938M and the MAS 44. But because most of the other semi-automatic rifles also have access to recoil buffers, this still doesn't exactly make it superior in the end. Bullet speed is pretty average, having a velocity of 760 meters per second, but this can be increased up to 860, making it slightly easier to use against longer range targets that might be running around in unpredictable patterns, trying to avoid your shots. The Gewehr 43 is another semi-automatic rifle that uses 5-round stripper clips, having the ammo capacity of 10 shots as standard. This is a pretty normal amount of bullets for one of these kind of guns to hold, though there are a few others with bigger capacities, like the M1A1 carbine, Self-Slaughter 1916, and Gewehr 15, which can be definitely useful if you're surrounded by enemies in the thick of the action. With the Gewehr 43 often being able to kill in less bullets due to it having a more powerful shot than average, this will often give it a bit of an advantage compared to other guns with 10 round capacities, with those bullets having a bit more worth. 10 rounds still isn't anything special at the end of the day, so you can't exactly go wild in CQC, being quite limited to the number of enemies you can comfortably take on. But the Gewehr 43 isn't exactly designed to be used too aggressively anyway, having more factors to benefit longer ranged use instead. Using a combination of clips and individual cartridges, you'll be able to reload 1 to 9 bullets in about 2.5 to 5.5 seconds, which is fairly slow in the overall picture, but isn't really too bad compared to similar guns that do the same thing. With a full reload taking 4.35 seconds, these times are a little bit quicker than a few of the others, but still nothing really to give it any kind of massive advantage, generally costing you a bit of time to perform that could get you killed in a sticky situation. Thankfully for the Gewehr 43, it's compatible with detachable box magazines, which are not only going to be more consistent and quicker to switch over, taking 2.25 seconds for a tactical reload, 3.15 seconds for a full one, but it'll also give you an extra bullet too, which just might come in handy during a gunfight. They're not completely necessary due to the gun catering to less offensive playstyles, but they definitely help to make the reloads feel snappier, making it feel more dependable overall by helping to make up for the weapon's fairly small mag size. Moving on to Specializations next. The Gewehr 43's got access to quick aim at the top left, speeding up that aim down sights time, and at the top right, high velocity bullets, increasing bullet speed to make it feel easier to use against longer range targets. Because the Gewehr 43 performs quite well over distance, having more stats to benefit defensive play, high velocity bullets is going to seem like a good fit, further enhancing its effectiveness over range. Quick aim will be useful in gunfights closer to the action, but I prefer to use high velocity bullets most of the time instead, especially when using a scope. In the next section of the Spectre, you'll find enhanced grips with detachable magazines on the left side, lowering hipfire spread and speeding up those reloads, and on the right side we've got the custom and light and stock options, letting you move faster while aiming and lowering spread while you do so. Although they're probably not as essential as other semi-auto rifles, I usually prefer to run down the left side with enhanced grips and detachable magazines, making the gun feel more reliable, with it only having access to 10 shots at a time. If you can manage without those magazines, then the custom and light and stock options are also going to go well with the gun, especially if you strafe around a lot to get on target. But I just find that the weapon can still perform well enough in most cases without having to go down this route, which lets us speed up those reloads a bit and make them feel a bit more consistent. Last of all, you'll find the recoil buffer on the bottom left, toning down that violent upwards kick, and on the bottom right side, the barrel bed in spec, reducing spread while standing still. I think it comes to no surprise when I say I'd rather go for the recoil buffer in this case, because it'll allow you to retain more control when firing faster, which will be really useful against players in the distance. And because the Gewehr 43 has been given one of the heftiest vertical kick values in the class, this choice seems like an ideal fit. So anyway, in conclusion, the Gewehr 43 is one of those guns that can be pretty effective over most ranges, having decent kill times by using slightly more powerful bullets. It doesn't exactly fire very fast, but that extra damage is going to help to make up for this, allowing the gun to take people down in less bullets over longer ranges, whilst also being capable of killing at reasonable speeds within close to mid ranges too. It can perform fair enough within shorter sight lines, but it's still not exactly designed to exceed here, due to that lower than average fire rate, making it a bit more problematic if you miss shots. It's generally more effective than other semi-automatic rifles for use over mid to long ranges instead, used a bit more defensively with less aggressive tactics, having a limited amount of ammo per magazine, forcing you to seek out cover to avoid incoming fire, while you top the gun's mag back up with bullets. Because the Gewehr 43 uses clips in individual rounds, this can sometimes make reloading a bit finicky. Definitely an issue if you're playing close to the action, where you're going to be vulnerable more often. Detachable mags make the reloads more bearable, but the gun's high vertical kick can still often force more shots to stray off target, especially if you're tapping the trigger quickly to achieve the Gewehr's maximum fire rate. So this might mean that you'll need to reload more often, or try to shoot a bit slower to keep the gun more stable. It can be a risky thing to use in close quarters for these reasons, though with bullet damage dropping to a 4-shot kill beyond 100 meters, it's still not exactly going to be a fantastic weapon to use against players too far away in the distance either, especially if those players happen to be recons wielding much more powerful sniper rifles. So all in all, despite being a fairly versatile rifle, the Gewehr 43 is typically going to perform at its best against enemies over mid-ranges most of the time. Being a slightly higher powered, slower firing weapon, they can take people down quite quickly over most ranges, providing you can tame that awkwardly high upwards kick. So that's just about it for another one folks, hope you enjoyed the guide. Give me a thumbs up if you did, and subscribe for more in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you in that next episode.